Welcome back to Series 4. No guests in Series 4, it's all me. No planned guests at any rate. And this is episode 4, which is all about treatment 1, in which I had a reaction to some of the treatment. So there will be discussions about that reaction and bodily functions and so on and so forth. So if you are not in the head, heart, spirit, emotional place to listen to that, please scroll on. I love you know your boundaries and I love that you're respecting them. I respect that and I love you and I love that for you. If you've decided to stay and listen, I'm not going to be too graphic, I hope. And it's not to alarm. This is never to alarm. It's to inform, and it's to inform you about my journey. And just because it happened to me does not mean it will happen to you. My protocol might be very different from you. My biology might be very different from you. So it's not to alarm. It is to inform. So I went back on the 20th of January after my assessment for my treatment to Belfast City Hospital Cancer Centre, up to Ward 3A. And you register at the reception desk in the foyer and you go up in the lift. You might take a stairs if you're fit enough, but we go up in the lift and you sit and you wait, which seems to be the running theme through all of this. I think whatever we're doing, you have to sit and wait. And again, I would say it's because of the number of people. And 3A was a hospital ward. It was a proper ward with bays, and each bay had 4 beds in it. And the bays seem to be to the right, and to the left are individual rooms. And you go into 3A, and then you turn right at the top of the ward, and another ward, which is 3B. Spartan ward 3B. And I was in Bay C, chair 20. So the bays don't have beds in them anymore. They have chairs, and they have a patient chair and a visitor chair. And a table with your jug and your glass of water, your jug and a glass. And the thing they hang the juice on, kind of like what you call it, the treatments on. And when you go in, they take you, they show you, and in each bay, there are 4 patient chairs, 4 spaces. It used to be 4 beds, so there's plenty and plenty of room around each patient receiving treatment. And there's also a toilet, bathroom. Actually has a shower, so a shower room in each bay. And I was in chair 20, so my back, the cancer centre again, like it's set up in a square. So out the back of me I had the window beside me, and you could just see the inside of the other wards across the way. I don't know what they are, 3D and 3F, 3C, 3, I don't know. The other side of the hospital. But opposite me was an entrance to a private room, and in that I could see out over Belfast. So it was lovely that I wasn't looking at just an orange wall at the back. You get weighed, even though you get weighed the day before. How much they think you're going to lose overnight, I don't know. But anyway, they weigh you. And it's all to do with the measurement of the medication that you're going to get, that it's the right level for your body size and so on and so forth. When they start with flushes and things and antihistamines and cortisol type stuff to make sure that you do not react to the drugs that you're going to get, the medications you're going to get. And the antihistamine makes you go to sleep. Well, it doesn't make you go to sleep, it makes you drowsy. So I snuggled my cardigan around me and I snuggled in, and the window was open, so it was lovely. So I was lovely and warm, but had this beautiful coolness coming over me as well from the window. And I snuggled in and I got my treatment. I got my antihistamines and so on and so forth, and I went for a wee doze. And I was woken by what I'm going to call a kerfuffle, because that's what it sounded like to me. And unfortunately, the lady to my right had taken a reaction to the medication that she had been given. Now, we were warned the day before when we met the staff nurse that this was possible, that some people can take a reaction to the medication, the Taxol, but it usually happens in the second treatment. And this lady was on her second treatment. I woke up to it, the curtains round her, and they were administering recovery drugs. So actually, by the time I kind of came around to it all, the lady was coming out of whatever sort of reaction she'd had. And what they do then is they wait for a length of time, 30 minutes or something, for the recovery meds to work, and then they put it back on, but they put it on at half speed. So whereas it's meant to take 3 hours, certainly mine was going to take 3 hours, it would then take up to 6 hours for this to go through, which is why they book you in first thing in the morning and they keep you there all day for that kind of treatment. So in a way, it was lovely to see how quickly they react. I didn't really see I was asleep, but I knew they had got to her very, very quickly. And her recovery was remarkably quickly. She was talking to them and everything within minutes. So that was reassuring. So again, you wait and you wait and wait. My treatment came, and it was the Taxol. And they give you your buzzer. The buzzer is kind of behind you on a wee shelf somewhere. And then when you get they put the buzzer right within hand's reach, just in case. And they warn you. And they put on big plastic sleeves, because nobody wants to splash with that stuff. It gets on your skin. They warn you whenever if you feel it on your skin at all, you have to alert them immediately, because I think it must really burn your skin on the outside if you get it on the outside of your skin. So you can just imagine what it's doing on the inside. And they come and they take your blood pressure and your temperature and all the rest to make sure they're gauging what's your baseline and then what are you during your treatment and so on and so forth. And there's always two. So there's one on the computer and there's one who's reading out, on the drugs, your name, your date of birth, how much of the Taxol you're going to get, how long it's going to take, so, and it's in technical terms, so it's like 75 milliliters over so many, whatever, and then they kind of tell you in plain English, sorry, you're getting this much, and it's going to be delivered over the 3 hours, and so on and so forth. And they give you the buzzer, and they say, if anything at all, press the buzzer. And I didn't expect anything at all, because they told me if it was going to react, it would be the second. And the next thing, I had to put my hands on my chest and my tummy. So this is how you use the tools, even in the worst case scenario. Because it wasn't that I couldn't get a breath, there was no air. That's what it felt like somebody had taken all the air out of the room. And I tried to signal to Stephen, but I don't think he realised what was going on. And so I hit the button. I found the button. And then I think he realised what was going on, not just because it hit the button, but because I went over flushed. This redness from my toes, the tips of my toenails to the roots, even felt like the ends of my hair. This flush. And with this flush came a heartbeat. So I was trying to say to them like this, to tell them that my heart was pounding in my ears. So obviously my blood pressure had gone up. They were there within seconds of me hitting the button, and they were administering they have a recovery trolley, and they started giving me the recovery drugs. They'd stopped the Taxol immediately, and they started giving me the recovery drugs. More antihistamines, more cortisol type stuff, or cortisone type stuff. I'm not entirely sure. They do tell you, they talk you through this, but at that moment in time, I wasn't really listening. And then they pull the curtains around you and they call for a doctor. who checks in you, and then there's another. So I ended up with three nurses, one delivering the recovery meds, one doing my temperature, blood pressure, so on and so forth, and the doctor, who did all that, we stopped for 30 minutes, and then we started administering it again for half an hour. And he goes through all what symptoms were you feeling, where were you? Because one of the other symptoms you can normally get is like spasms in your back. I never got that. I got a pain right at the top. And I have an issue that I got during COVID, trying to do a headstand. Way past doing headstands during COVID. But you know all those silly things we were doing during COVID to keep ourselves entertained? Yeah, well, I ended up hurting my neck. And that was the only place that was sore me and it was really sore with the back of the neck. And they put me on oxygen. And for future, if you're with a person doing that, take their glasses off because they trying to keep the oxygen on. Because I like to have my hands on my chest and my tummy in situations like that because that's very grounding for me. I'm telling myself I'm right here and I'm safe. I'm okay. And I firmly believe, could be wrong, that I didn't take any spasms because I stayed calm. Emotionally, I stayed calm. I was having a very biological reaction. I would say the pounding in the ears, really, really high blood pressure. The flush was obviously the blood coming out going, this whole heck. And it's strange, the pain in the back of the head. But it was only, I firmly believe that I didn't have the spasms because I had my hands on until they put that, and then I had to hold it on to get the oxygen in. And it was over in second. In fact, it happened so quick. The nurse hadn't got her plastic sleeves off. It was the same nurse came in, and she hadn't got her plastic sleeves off. That's how quick it happened. It happened within the first 5 minutes, and it happened with less than 32 milliliters having gone in. So they gave me all the recovery meds they could at that time, and they waited half an hour, and then they came back to try again with half dose. And they said, we'll be back in 15 minutes, but there's a button just in case. So the second time I didn't need to use the button because it wasn't so severe. But I can honestly tell you, I had heat here. I had heat just at the top of my tummy. And it felt like my hands had swollen right up and they were tingling. Now, when the doctor looked at them, by the time he came, so anyway, they came back after 15 minutes and, Valerie, how are you doing? And I says, I've heat here, and my hands feel like they're swollen and fuzzy. Pins and needles. So they immediately stopped the Taxol again and delivered more recovery meds. So when the doctor came and I'd said my hands were swollen, he lifted them and I says, no, they're not swollen now, but they felt swollen while that was going in. And even when he lifted them, I could tell that the skin was loose again. But at the time, and I couldn't honestly put my hand on my heart and say they actually swole, but they felt swollen. And when I was talking to Stephen, and I said to him, was that really scary to watch? And he said, no. Because the lady opposite, you went exactly the way she did. That flushed colour and all the rest. He says, I knew exactly what was happening and I knew how quickly they would be in as soon as you hit the button. And he said to me, was it scary for you? I said, well, again, it wasn't scary because I knew how quick they were in and it really wasn't comfortable. It really was not comfortable. So then they had to wait so they decided, the doctor decided, he said, I'm not waiting for your oncology team. I'm not going to talk to them. He says, we're stopping it. He says, if you've had 2 reactions on the first treatment, this is not the treatment for you. We're stopping it. So today you're only getting your carboplatin. I'm like, right, okay. The problem is the pharmacy thought that I was getting a 3-hour infusion. So I had to wait for the carboplatin come up. And I hadn't had my lunch. That was the thing that surprised me then, was lunch came round shortly after that. And I was well enough. That's how good the recovery meds are. I was well enough to have lunch. And Stephen had gone downstairs to the chat cafe for his lunch. Um, I had a lovely vegetable soup and half a egg and onion sandwich. So if the nurse hadn't warned me the day before that it might happen, and particularly if the lady to the right of me hadn't had the reaction, I might have been more scared. But because I'd seen how quickly, and I didn't see her reaction, I didn't, by the time I had kind of woken up from my wee doze, the curtains were around her and I couldn't see her. But because I knew how quickly stuff had happened, I wasn't as frightened as I could be. Knowledge. Forewarned is forearmed. Would I want to go through it again? Absolutely not. And I send my heart and blessings to anybody that's going through that. So there was a lot of waiting around. And the lady diagonally opposite me, if you haven't followed me and watched me around the rest, I have autism and ADHD, which means there's a bit of echolalia there. So I hear things. So somebody peeps their horn and I go toot toot back at them. A dog barks and I bark back. And in situations where I'm masking, shall we say, I'm fully in control of myself and I'm masking, I can control it. But when you've had a whole pile of recovery meds and stuff, there's not a flipping chance of that. So the girls were diagonally opposite me, either her or her husband, I don't know which, had their phones on. So every time they got a text message, there was a toot toot, toot toot. And they seemed to get a lot of. Um, and of course, I'm sitting there, and at one stage, there were so many messages, and I had so many recovery meds that eventually I toot tooted back. I think at that point they might have turned their phone off. There's times, see at home with Stephen and his phone goes and I go, hello. And I'll not finish that because I don't want to, I'm not advertising any other, but you know the ringtone that ends with hello. I do that all the time when I'm at home, but this was so slightly embarrassing in hospital. But I kind of think if you're in a situation like that where you're in a shared room, and maybe that's just me, maybe I'm just that old fashioned, and younger people are so used to their phones being on all the time that I just kind of think you put your phone on silent when you're in a place like that. But anyway, um, and the lady to my left, I think she was on her last treatment. And of the four of us, the one diagonally opposite, they were hoping to get theirs and get away at lunchtime and go for lunch, and didn't realize. Obviously, they were new to this, as like me and Stephen, and didn't realize there was so much. So they ended up going for a very late lunch. But the lady to the left of me, on her very last treatment, and on the last bit of her last treatment, ended up going to the bathroom and vomiting. And my heart bled for her. And I hope my face said, when she came out of the bathroom, I looked at her and I hope my face said, I'm so sorry you're going through this and I wish you all the very best. But it must have said something because when she got over to her chair and she got everything else, she turned around and she said, this whole room, and by this stage the lady diagonal opposite me was gone, cheerio. And that was the first that any of us had spoken to each other in that bay in all the hours we've been there. And by this, so I was in there, my appointment was 10:30, and I was taken in by about 11:15, and this was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And that was the first time I spoke to each other. And I broke the ice. So the lady to my right that had had the reaction then, she started talking to me and I was talking to her. She says, you reacted same as me. What treatment are you on? I said, treatment 1. She's like, I'm on treatment 2. I said, yeah, I kind of warned you it's going to be treatment 2. And all this conversation back and forth, which was lovely. It broke the ice in the room. So that was these two chairs, the one diagonally opposite me and the one to my left were now empty. And within an hour, there were two new people in them. One lady who was wearing a wig, so obviously she was much further through her treatment. And I think the other lady was on her first treatment as well. And that's just one bay. And that's the third bay on Ward B. And there must have been 3 or 4 wards on ward A, as well as the individual rooms. Heartbreaking. Heartbreaking that so many individuals and families and friends and communities are going through what we are going through. So anyway, eventually my carboplatin came up and I got administered it, and thankfully there was no reactions at all. And I think they did a bit of a flush afterwards. But we had to wait again. So the nurses at lunchtime were being very funny and going, "Oh, you'll be away because carboplatin takes half an hour. It'll be grand." But we had to wait for the carboplatin coming up. And then because I'd reacted, they wanted to give me steroids. So they give you anti-sickness tablets to take home. And then they wanted to give me, and they give you steroids as well. You have to take steroids so I get treatment on a Tuesday. You have to take steroids for 2 days after, the Wednesday and Thursday for me. And anti-sickness you can take, anyway, over that week and stuff. Over, I think it's 3 times a day over 5 days or whatever, but everybody's prescription might be different. So, because I had the reaction and they didn't know what my team were going to give or prescribe for the next time round, they were giving me extra steroids to take on the Monday and Tuesday before my next treatment on the Tuesday in February. So we had to wait. And we had to wait. And then eventually, all that stuff came up. But again, pharmacy weren't know that they had to do that. And the pharmacy, I don't know how many staff they have, but they're working for a whole hospital. And if you think even just on the cancer unit, how many people were looking at their meds and stuff. And I remember other people saying to me they would go up on and I think they were having their treatment the same day. So a bit like me now, I could, only I'm scheduled in for Monday assessment, Tuesday treatment. If you're not having the 3-hour infusion, you can go on the same day as your treatment. You've got to get your bloods and stuff taken, and whoever looks at those has got to look at those before they prescribe whatever, and the pharmacy come up with your treatment for your height, not your height, your weight, your platelet levels, so on and so forth. So it's all individually done. And I remember saying to people, why in the name of all that's holy are you going up for a 10 o'clock appointment, but you're not getting your treatment at 6 o'clock in the evening? Why? And I know why. Because they've got to check your bloods, they've got to make up, it's individualized to you. It's not everybody gets 2 paracetamol type thing. So I get it now. But what it does mean is there's an awful lot of sitting about waiting. So eventually Stephen and I managed to get out of there. And he had to leave me in the foyer and go and get the car because there was no way. After as much as I was able to eat a bowl of soup and half a sandwich, I wasn't right. And there's no way you can stretch the imagination to say I was right. I was not right. So he left me in the hall and he went and got the car. And when I came home, and she only told me this like weeks later, 2 or 3 weeks later, Catherine said, I didn't expect you to look so pale after your first treatment. I didn't expect you to look that bad. And I was like, yes, sweetie, but I had a reaction. And I might never look that bad again after a treatment. It might only be because I had such a reaction and then I had such heavy meds. So the 2 days after your treatment, you're on steroids, and you're on the part of the infusion is a steroid, which means the night of your treatment and 2 nights after, you don't sleep. So you're wired and you're tired, and you kind of doze in places. So you might have a really big sleep in the middle of the afternoon for about an hour. And that's great, except you kind of think, oh, that's going to knock off your night's sleep. No, it really isn't. Your night's sleep's gone anyway, so sleep when you can. And the staff nurse on the Monday had said about constipation. I said, look, I have extensive diverticulitis, prunes, prune juice, chia seeds, I'll be fine. And she says, yeah, I don't think you get it. I think you. I thought, no, she doesn't get me. Oh no, she was right. The anti-sickness meds slow down your metabolism to the point that you become constipated. So on the Thursday night, so Wednesday and Thursday, I wasn't comfortable on the Wednesday, but I was uncomfortable by the Thursday. And I did reflexology, so I did hand reflexology. So I'm rubbing my hands and I did aromatherapy as well, so I'm gently massaging my stomach. And I'm walking the halls and I was really struggling. I was really, really struggling. Now, I did go to bed and I did actually sleep, I think, because that was the Thursday night. By that stage, I was so exhausted from 2 nights of non-sleep that I did actually get some sleep till about 4 o'clock in the morning. And then I was so sore I got up and I was walking the hall and doing a jigsaw and massaging my hands. I actually couldn't touch my hands by that stage. My hands were so sore because everything was so sore, but I was able to gently massage my stomach. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, we had success. On the Thursday evening, Stephen had to go and get my laxative. And by 6 o'clock on the Friday morning, success. Everything had started moving again. Yay! Aren't you so glad you tuned in to hear about my bodily functions? But the reason I want to talk about that is because again, I don't lie under things. I was so ill when I was 9 that I learned then at that point, you don't lie under things. You get up and you make the best of it as you can. So I was doing all the things I could do. I was drinking water, I was drinking hot water, lemon and ginger tea, gently massaging my stomach, walking as much as I could walk, when I could walk, keeping the brain entertained as much as I could by doing a jigsaw. Breathing. There was lots and lots and lots of deep breathing. And there was also visualization. Now, don't go there. What I visualized? Don't go there. What I was visualizing was just flowers opening, things letting go, releasing. And those were the words I was even saying to myself was, I can let this go. I can release. And there was a bit of tapping going on as well. How much any of that helped more or less than the laxative helped, I've no idea. But it helped me. It helped me to feel that whilst I wasn't in control of the bodily function as much as I would like to have been, I was in control of the emotion that was going on with the bodily function. I was able to tap and to breathe and to visualize and remain with it. Because if I'd have got stressed at that point, as we know, the digestive system was offline and that would have made everything 100 times worse and everything would have clamped up, which would have made it 100 times worse. So I was trying to really relax and really release and let go. I'll maybe put the links in the thing below to the Macmillan that shows you the side effects and so on and so forth. Because what it tells you is because you have the recovery meds, sorry, not the recovery meds, because you have the steroids, the 2 days after treatment, you will feel reasonably okay. And then the next 2 days, which is the third Friday and the Saturday for me, you will dip. Now, to me, a dip is a dip. This was not a dip. This was a dip. And even with the dip, it was kind of then over the Friday and the Saturday. So we got up on the Friday morning, went to bed, back to bed at 6 o'clock on the Friday and slept to maybe 10 or something. And again, even though I had the steroids on the Thursday, this was Friday morning, I think it was exhaustion by that stage that I was able to sleep. Because I hadn't really slept the 2 nights before the assessment or the treatment, just because it's unknown and it's new and da-da-da-da. And I got up and I got something to eat, something really small, because my appetite was gone. But I was hungry, so I needed something. And I'm doing my blood sugars because you're on steroids. And when you're on steroids, blood sugars were quite high. They were like 7.6 and 9 point something. But the appetite was gone. Wasn't really eating very much. or feeling I'd been constipated the day before. So I had a little bit of something to eat. I didn't even get dressed that day, which is not like me. I normally have a shower, get dressed, but I didn't get dressed that day because I just didn't feel right. And I ended up going back to bed, and it was really, really cold. Really, really, really cold. Did my temperature was fine. But I just felt off. Not me. Not like my usual self. I slept for hours at that stage. Get up in the evening then to have something to eat. And the opposite, the diarrhea started. And I'd said to Stephen, once the plug comes out, we'll be going. And we were, and I was not me. I was going, and it wasn't pleasant. And it made me think of a couple of things. Strange where my brain goes to. Autism, ADHD. One, how does anybody manage this with only one toilet now? If there's more than, if they don't live alone. Because first of all, with the constipation, I was in and out and in and out and in and out trying to go. And then the diarrhea, I was in and out and in and out going. And Stephen and Catherine were using the upstairs bathroom. So it was part of me wondered, and the other part of me was then just very, very, very grateful that we had two toilets in the house. And the next day, the dip was even worse. The dip was even worse. And my blood sugar was in my boots. My blood sugar, I think that morning was like 3.1. And your normal blood sugar is between 4 and 5 after a night's sleep. But I had no appetite. So again, it was a very, very small breakfast. Very bland breakfast. Very bland. And was it that night Catherine made me, can't remember if it was the Friday night or the Saturday night, she said to me, what do you want? And I wanted boiled rice with butternut squash and tofu. My child went to the boiler getting a butternut squash. And if anybody here is a cook or cooks at all, but with butternut squash, them things are not easy to peel. And she cooked a whole batch of it. I had 4 mouthfuls. I got 2 mouthfuls, and then I had to stop and I had to wait and then eventually I had a 3rd mouthful, and eventually I had the 4th mouthful. So the whole batch that child had cooked for me ended up having to go out in the bin because I couldn't look at it again. That must have been the Friday night. I can't even remember what I had on the Saturday night. I think I had lentil soup. But the Saturday, I got up, very, very bland breakfast. Again, ended up having to go back to bed, I think after lunchtime-ish, but don't even think I had very much for lunch, if I had anything at all. And I was so cold. Eventually I had to text them to come and I was in bed with a 13.5 tog duvet, and I got Stephen to come up and put the blanket on me when I went to bed. And it's a fleece on one side and a fluffy on the other. So double layer blanket. I then had to call for them to come and do my temperature and bring me 2 hot water bottles. I had woke on the Saturday morning actually with a pain in my lower right quadrant. It's not normally my lower right that's sore, it's normally my lower left. So they had to bring me 2 hot water bottles and put an extra duvet over the top of me. I was that cold, I was shivering. My temperature was still normal. Crazy. I felt really, really, really ill. Now, eventually, with all of that on me and the 2 hot water bottles, I did get back to sleep for another wee while. Sleep is such a great restorer. So, medicinal. It's phenomenal. Such a great healer. So eventually I did get a couple of hours sleep. And I got up again about dinner time. And as I say, Catherine, bless her heart, went down to the local shop and looked for all the dairy-free soups she could find. Child couldn't find any dairy-free soups. They were all they all have milk in them for some reason. So we went with the one with the least amount of milk in the hope that it wouldn't upset the system too much, which was a lentil soup. And again, I only had half a tin of lentil soup. So the next morning, again, my blood sugar, that might have actually been the morning my blood sugar was 3.1. It was so low. So those were the dips. The Saturday was a real major major dip. And on the Saturday, I said, I don't think I can do this because I felt so ill. I felt so unlike myself and I felt so ill. And I said, to both of them, I don't think I can do this. I don't know how anybody goes back and does this repeatedly. And not even like for your second or your third treatment, but there are people who have had a cycle and or their sixth cycle and are back for another lot of six or another lot of nine. Or I'm like, I don't know how anybody does this. But it was also in the middle of that the second thing that struck me that I was talking about earlier. And I don't know how anybody does this alone. Because in the middle of it, I was able to text David and go, can you go and get laxative? And he went on his way home from work and got the laxative. It was home time before I rung him. When I couldn't eat anything and I wanted just a soup, Callum went down and did. So how anybody does this alone, and I know there are people that do this alone, and I don't just mean going to the appointments alone, going to the treatments alone. I mean they're physically doing it on their own. They have nobody. And I do not know why they do that. And my heart absolutely bleeds for them. It absolutely bleeds for them because this is not easy to do. And to have to do it alone doesn't worth thinking about. So the Sunday morning I get up, just the end on a lighter note, I get up on the Sunday morning and you're sent home with a list of if this happens, ring the helpline. And it really underlined and wrote home the whole thing about temperature. My temperature was normal. Through all of it, no matter how cold I was, my temperature was normal. No matter how shivery I was, temperature was normal. When I get up on the Sunday morning, I felt remarkably so much better on the Sunday morning. And I looked at the rest of the list, and there was about 4, if not 5, symptoms on that list. And I really should have been phoning the helpline. I really should have been phoning the helpline. The problem was we were so focused on the temperature that we didn't. Now, the blessing is I came out the other side of it and I was obviously all right. There wasn't obviously that much wrong with me, although it felt like it. I really wouldn't wish that on anybody. And what I would say is I have an amazing family. I have an amazing group of friends and I have an amazing community who, if at any point in that weekend that I said, can somebody go and get me lentil soup? Somebody would have gone and got me lentil soup. People have been more than generous. So if you know someone who is going through this, I'm not talking about me, my family and friends and my community, my wider community have me absolutely sorted. But if you know somebody, even on the periphery of your circle, that is maybe going through this, don't wait for them to reach out. Don't say I'm here if you need me. Please say that. Do please say that. But also, just turn up. Just leave them. And it doesn't matter. It could be a voucher for a shop. Or it could, if you really don't know what they like, if you're thinking of them going, because you don't know well enough to know what soups they eat or if they're dairy free or gluten free or any of the rest, then a voucher so that they can, and even a voucher for a local food takeaway place, because even if they have people living with them, everybody gets knackered. I can tell you, Stephen and Catherine get knackered at times, particularly that weekend of the Friday, Saturday. Catherine took the Friday off and looked after me, and then Stephen and her looked after me on the Saturday. And there was things like I took night sweats and stuff, so they were having to change beds and wash bed linen and tumble dry bed linen and all the rest. Which my tumble dryer's in the living room, so it had to go to my daughter-in-law's to be tumble dried. And everybody just gets knackered. So even if it's a voucher for a takeaway place, so that when the person is well enough to eat something that's and during that period, it's all very light, it's all very bland, it's all very porridgey type, soupy type stuff. When they get over that point, It might be nice that everybody gets a night off from cooking and has something. It's maybe not the healthiest, but it'll get them through a night. You can do groceries. You can leave. One of the days, those dips that I talk about, um, a friend of mine, her mother went through treatment. And if I mention at all that I'm in any way struggling, she lands at my door with, and she doesn't even knock at the door. She just leaves it and goes, um, lemon and ginger tea, turmeric tea. She left me another tea this time. I forgot what it is. Um, Ginger nut biscuits, rich tea biscuits, those sorts of things. Light things that if you really can't stomach anything else, you can have a wee rich tea, or you might have a ginger nut to try and settle your stomach. And mince, because it doesn't matter how much you drink, tea or water, you still have this horrible taste in your mouth. And that's lovely. Did somebody? I don't. I don't ask. She just very struggling again, because we have wee WhatsApp groups and they ask all the time, and I'd be going, oh, crash day one, crash day two, and they arrive up with somebody, and somebody else makes, right, this is treatment week, so we'll throw around some savory jam, or another friend who's not in my inner circle is out in my periphery, but it was so lovely of her, made me a lovely vegetable curry and just left it at the door for me with daffodils from my living room. Um, so if you know somebody that's going through this, whether they're on their own or not, don't wait for them to reach out, because seriously, on that Friday and Saturday, I was not well enough to reach out to anybody, bar my own two in the house. Just drop off something. Drop off something. Whether it's a kind of soup, a voucher for a drive-through whenever they're feeling a wee bit better, a card, just to let them know you're thinking of them, or even just text them to say, I know this might be a hard week, and I want you to know I'm here for you. There you go. Treatment one, done and dusted. I hope you find this useful in some way, shape, or form, to know that you can use your tools in the worst of times, in the absolute worst of times, when you are really not feeling yourself. But only if you've practiced them. I have to caveat that all the time, like, only if you've practiced them. I remember to use my tools because I use them all the time. I use them every single day, even when I don't need them. So that my reticulative activating system, this thing in the back of your brain, when things go wrong, it kicks in and goes, should we not be breathing right now? What about a wee bit of visualization? Would that help? What about hand massage? What about it? Clicks in because I do the work all the time, and therefore it remembers. In this situation, we don't panic, we breathe. We don't, we tap. We visualize. We massage. So, whatever you're facing in your life, I hope you find the tools in the community to help you. If you need help, just PM me, reach out. And if it's not me, if I don't resonate with you, if you go to my Facebook business page, I have helpline numbers pinned to the top of the page. Find someone, and if you're not local to me, still find someone. There'll be local helpline numbers to you. And I wish you good emotional well-being.